Hey guys, welcome back to We Met at Acme. I'm so excited to be here with Frida, founder and CEO Chelsea Hirschhorn. Hi.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So, before we get into anything, Chelsea, what is your favorite romantic gesture?
Ooh,
And this is like for someone to do for you, like for your husband to do.
yeah. Romance is hard for me. Presence with a C, not a T. I find that in an age of distraction, in an abundance of distraction, just sort of unobstructed presence, especially as parents of four, is such a gift. I also get really turned on when he does things that are traditionally maternal or domestic in nature.
When he does maternal things.
Just things that I'm supposed to be doing as the head of the house or the mom. And when he steps up, which is frequently, to help me with that, it's a very big gesture.
I love that. And that's so interesting to hear because I feel like like with the gender roles and whatever, it's like almost, I've heard some people say that it's like more of a turn on when a guy like will fix something than when he'll like change a diaper.
First of all, I have no aspirations of any sort of handy fixing of any sort
Yeah.
in my house. I will leave that to the professionals.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I think especially when you have a household that is so egalitarian like ours, where we each contribute meaningfully professionally.
Right.
It's a really big turn on for me when he steps up and contributes in an area that is historically, stereotypically relegated to mothers or women.
I agree. And I feel like regardless of how much like how equal it is with what you guys are bringing in, men should be doing this more.
Totally. I mean, Eve Rodsky's book, Fair Play, was
Yes,
a
I
game
was just
changer for
talking
me.
about this
It's
book.
amazing. It's an amazing book. And to be honest, I mean, I didn't really need to read the book to embrace some of her principles and philosophies. I think Eric just has that DNA naturally. But it really did crystallize a lot of realities, both in and outside the house for me. And the cards were not always stacked in my favor.
Yeah.
And so I just really appreciate when he takes the kids to school every day. There are some definite contributions that I am romantically inclined to accept.
Totally. How did you and Eric meet?
Law school in New York City.
It's really cute. What
12th and 5th, a warm corner.
Wait, were you at Cardozo?
Yeah.
I love that. My dad went there.
Yeah, really? Yes, I have a fond place in my heart for the corner of 12th and 5th.
Yeah.
We lived on 15th. Well, he lived in Union Square. I lived on 15th Street. I wasn't allowed to have roommates. So
How come?
my parents took academics very seriously.
They thought they would be distractions?
Any distraction.
That's so
whatsoever. Funny. And I see myself now channeling some of that same seriousness that I would like to shed or abandon for my children. But it worked out. So, they definitely did some things right.
Totally. So did you ever
we met
practice?
law school, and I definitely practiced. We met law school sitting in the lobby, and his socks matched his sneakers. And I asked him if he did that on purpose. And without skipping a beat, he said yes.
It's really cute. Look at you. You're both very coordinated.
Very coordinated. He has way better taste and style than I do.
No.
Yes. So I guess maybe presence with a T also.
Uh-huh. In that case, yes. It's funny. I was out to dinner with my girlfriends last night, and we were talking about how our husbands are terrible gift getters. Like they just have no idea. And
I know the type.
And I was saying to them, I'm like, you need to just send them links.
Yeah, no,
like, why are you even giving them an opportunity? And I was like, unless they have impeccable taste, but I know your husbands and they certainly do not.
Right.
But if your husband does, that's rare.
I take second place in our family with respect to taste and style. He is a harbinger of taste and all things cool. Like before Pinterest even existed, he had this folder on his desktop called My Ish. And it was a collection of screenshots and images
It was like his
from
vision
around the
board.
world. Correct. And then Pinterest was created.
Mhm.
And I made
He
him
could
when
have
we got
created
engaged.
it.
Yeah, exactly. When we got engaged, I made him a book of all these images
Mhm.
because I was just
It's
so
really cute.
amazed at the collection of inspiration that he has.
Mhm.
I mean, makes sense now thinking about him as a marketer, and a
How
brand builder. But yeah, I mean,
so he's part of Frida with you?
oh yes.
We need to talk
Uh,
about working
oh
with
yes.
working with your husband.
How long
But
do you have?
but before we get into all of that, we need to close up the relationship conversation. So you guys met in law school.
We met in law school.
How long did you date before
Let me
you were
get
engaged?
comfortable. Hold on.
Yeah, get
Hold
comfy.
on. Okay.
Lay your hair down.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. We dated for 4 years before we got
Okay.
engaged.
Okay. And you
Like
guys
I
were
said, I
how
wasn't allowed to really entertain any sort of academic distraction.
Right. And you guys but you were young. You were like what, 26?
I was 22 when we met. He came
Yeah.
to my 23rd birthday
Oh my
on the
God.
Lower East Side.
So you got married at like 27?
I got married
28?
when I was 26. No.
Okay.
Yeah, when I was 26.
Yeah.
And he was 29.
Okay. Young.
Yes.
I mean,
Can I do my math?
I
Yeah.
consider that young.
Very young. I mean, like
Yeah.
in retrospect, when
Where are you from originally? Is it Miami?
New York.
Oh.
He went to school in New York City. He went
Okay.
to Horace Mann.
Oh, that's
And
so
I
funny.
grew up in Westchester.
Oh my God, you're me and my husband, but reverse.
Really?
Yeah.
Where did he grow up?
In Armonk.
I grew up in Chappaqua.
Ah,
Neighbors.
amazing.
My parents still live in Westchester. They live in Bedford.
That's incredible. I love Westchester. If I were ever to move out of the city, it would be Westchester
It's
for
great.
sure.
We love spending time with them there.
It's really
It's
nice.
a special place.
It's really special. So I'm all over the place because I have so much to ask you.
Away.
Okay, so then you guys, you get engaged, you get married.
Getting
And at
engaged.
this point in time, you're both lawyers.
Correct. Both practicing attorneys. So we got engaged. I was a bankruptcy attorney at sort of the premier bankruptcy law firm in the city, Weil Gotshal. I was recruited my 3rd year of law school after doing an internship and a summer associate position there over the summer. And this was 2008, 2009. So in anticipation of the financial crisis, they recruited me 3rd year of law school to start working that September. So I interned throughout my 3rd year and practiced there until we moved to Miami.
Wow. Okay. So you get to Miami, you guys settle down.
So
Why did you choose Miami, by the way?
So he was a general counsel of a Brazilian private equity firm that had acquired Burger King. Burger King is based in Miami.
Got you.
And he volunteered to move down and help run the restructuring of the business.
Obviously, after a conversation with you.
In parallel.
Uh-huh.
I mean, listen, I think it was fortuitous in retrospect. I was working 28-hour days during the filing of the Lehman Brothers bankruptcy, General Motors bankruptcy, American Airlines bankruptcy. I had amazing mentors there who I credit with a lot of the professional decisions that I made ultimately, but it was a lot. And so when he surfaced this, he actually moved down right before we got married. He went to look for an apartment. When he surfaced this, I was totally game. I was like, he's like, it'll be 2 years. It's been 15.
And you were planning to leave your job and move to Miami, or were you going to be remote?
No, I'm sort of, I'm generally risk averse, contrary to what it may seem. Like,
when's your
based
birthday?
on my career trajectory, March 22nd. I'm an Aries.
I knew you were an Aries.
Really?
I could tell immediately.
Oh
Yeah.
my God.
What is his birthday?
Virgo.
Okay.
I don't really dive deep into astrology.
Well, you're not like Aries are usually actually very like what's the word when you like act first and then think later? Not spontaneous, but there's
reactive?
No, like
impulsive? Yeah.
So you must have like other things in your chart, but you have Aries energy.
I feel maybe I'm fairly impulsive, just within a sandbox.
Right.
I like a sandbox to play in, and then I can be impulsive all around the corners of, of the sandbox.
Okay, so you moved to Miami.
So I said yes. I said, let's go. If it's 2 years, especially we had no kids yet. We just had a little dog. And I didn't want to practice within a law firm in Florida because I would have had to take the bar again. And having gone through that a few years prior, it
Yeah, it's
wasn't something that I
horrible.
wanted to do. But Florida has this loophole where if you work in-house for a company, you don't have to take the bar again. You're not in the primary business of providing legal advice. And so I got an amazing opportunity working for the baseball team down there, the Miami Marlins.
It's awesome.
Yeah. And they were building out their ballpark and they needed an associate counsel to help run that process in parallel with building out their non-baseball revenue as sort of an independent vertical.
That's
So
awesome.
he was running the restructuring of Burger King, ultimately taking over as CMO. And I was in baseball, so burgers and baseball,
Burgers
and
and
eventually
baseball.
babies.
So then you guys decided to start a family,
Correct.
and I'm just assuming everything changed.
Yes, not totally overnight. We weren't sort of super intentional about trying. It just said if it happens, it happens. And a few months into that sort of reckless abandonment of any sort of caution, we were pregnant and decided that it was time to move out of an apartment and maybe buy a house. I think we were loosely committed to Miami at that time. He really loved the experience that he was getting building and scaling the Burger King business and building that brand. And professionally, I was feeling generally fulfilled. I loved working in sports, but there was a little bit of a glass ceiling for me professionally. But I thought, oh, I'm pregnant. Maybe this will afford me a lifestyle that, as a working mom, would be conducive to being present at home and at work, sort of under the mistaken illusion that you could do both perfectly at any given point.
Right, which is impossible.
I know, correct. But I didn't know that.
So you become a mom, and your baby is how old when you start to think about this first product?
Oh, okay. So back up. I was pregnant with Hunter, my oldest of 4, who's now 11. And we bought our house on Miami Beach, and my neighbor, who is this lovely Swedish woman, invited us over to meet some of the other neighbors. And she told us about this business that she had selling the Swedish snotsucker from her garage, and asked if I knew anyone who wanted to take over the business or help her scale it because her kids were teenagers and she had sort of lost touch with that stage of life. And had no real interest in pursuing it any farther. And so I was working at the Marlins, like I said, on paper, had a dream job with respect to managing parenthood and my professional priorities. And she left the Nas Frida in my mailbox and had no idea what it was. Put it in the back of my nursery drawer, my medicine cabinet. And then I gave birth. I had Hunter.
Oh, so those were conversations before.
So those were, I mean, as a first time pregnant mom or soon to be mom, I had no idea what that was or why I would need it. Or,
right.
Of
course.
It really hadn't reached this level of awareness at that stage. Fast forward, he got sick for the first time. I'm like trying to figure out that turkey baster bulb syringe around the same time. An image of it on Babbel went viral of a mom who cut it open. It was like the inside of a moldy bath toy.
Oy.
And I, for whatever reason, dug up that thing that she left in my mailbox. And I was like, why didn't anyone tell me about this? Why doesn't anyone know about this? I mean, I was certainly not the first amongst some of my friends, but fairly early on to have a kid. And not long after that, on a paper napkin, I think in her living room, took over running the business. And with sort of a gentle nudge from Eric to contemplate something outside of the sandbox. so diving in sort of blindly, not really knowing anything about the nature of entrepreneurial sacrifice and commitment, just thinking I can do better for parents.
Yeah.
I can help make this more accessible. I had watched Eric build and rebuild the Burger King brand at that time. And so he was instrumental in helping me think about building a brand around a product that was such a hero in our life,
Mm-hmm.
and how to do that really effectively on a very lean budget. And so, yeah, he was always sort of moonlighting, I guess, as a CMO of sorts,
Yeah.
even though he definitely had his own day job and career
Mm-hmm.
and accomplishments.
So going back to the napkin, like
Yeah.
what is, if you are comfortable sharing, like what was the deal?
The deal was come be our CEO.
Uh-huh. You be the CEO.
Correct. She didn't want anything to do with it. Her husband is an amazing entrepreneur. He had started Crunch Gym in the 90s, sold it, and then moved down to Miami. Come be our CEO. Help us run and scale the business. We'll give you a little bit of equity and, figure it out from there. Moved the product from her garage into our first office, sat on a Home Depot lawn chair and an IKEA desk, continued to import the products from Sweden, and not too far into the structure of the relationship under that initial sort of conversation, realized that I wanted to be play a bigger part in some of the decision making, and scale the business in a way that required a different level of investment.
Mm-hmm.
And so ultimately bought the business from her.
Wow. It's so awesome. So I have a almost 1-year-old, and when I first gave birth, my college roommate and very close friend is she lives in Sweden.
Yep.
She lives in Stockholm.
Yep.
She sent me a care package. And the first thing was, but it was all in Swedish, and
Yep.
and
That's Frida.
I just didn't even know. Same as you, like I didn't even know what it would mean and
No.
this and that. And
No, you look at the straw and you're like, what
right.
am I about to get myself into?
Totally. And now Frida, I mean, I can't speak on like actual statistics because I don't have them in front of me or no, but like is in my mind the biggest baby brand
Oh,
like out there.
it's
I
really
was telling
music
the
to my
girls
ears.
before you got here, like I was just saying how like it just genius idea to just make all of this easier. What did I say specifically that you guys were like, you have to tell her? Because now I'm forgetting.
The case study for business.
Yeah. It should be a case study for business, like truly. And I'm sure it is, by the way. I'm sure it is studied already in college classes, whatever. If it's not, it should be in grad schools. And it's like you find this need and you're a mom yourself. And it's like, it's so authentic, right? Like so many people try to start these businesses and they're just trying to find something that like they actually like, but they don't actually need the thing. There's not actually like a white space. Like this was so necessary and amazing. So thank you for like making this happen and exist. Truly. No,
I
it's
know,
such a help.
You hear it every now and then, of course, obviously, but I never tire of hearing it.
Yeah.
And we just took a tour of a few New York City hospitals where a lot of the impetus for our postpartum and feminine care line came from the delivery ultimately of my second child, and they were meeting with us to ask us about providing the postpartum recovery products in hospital.
Yeah.
So it really feels full circle, but you're seeing these women walk around the hospital in your delivery gown that you created with the peri bottle and the products in their hospital room. It was mind blowing for
amazing.
me. And it was just, the validation is so helpful as an entrepreneur at any stage of scale.
Mm-hmm.
And really motivates me to really keep pursuing this vision that we have for escorting families through transformational life stages.
Yeah.
That you're uniquely ill-equipped for, and parenthood is just like top amongst them.
Totally. And I just feel like after you become a parent, and I was telling the girls before you got here this too, like so many things come up where you're like, why isn't this like, why isn't there something for this? Why isn't there something for this? But no one actually does anything.
Yeah.
And I was telling them because, your first was a boy, so you experienced this. What we need, and I'm counting on you for this,
I'm on it. Tell
we
me. Lay it on me.
need something to fix the fact that your son pees on
Peas. I
you
know.
while you change them.
I know.
And there's horrible things out there that don't work.
PPTP?
The
I
PPTP
know.
sucks
I know.
and it gets soaking wet and
I
it's
know.
gross and then you have to clean that.
Yep.
And it doesn't even stay on them. Like,
No.
what are you going to do? Tape it to their body? Like,
No.
they're a newborn.
No.
So I'm counting on you. I know that you guys will find something.
I'm on it. My hack was always to leave the
diaper.
the top of the diaper.
Yeah, we do that too.
Slide the second diaper
100%.
underneath. It could be better.
And
You're
we
right.
do it, but
You're right.
but his stream is powerful.
I know, and it's like up there, and
Yeah.
all over.
Uh-huh.
And it's really, there's so many. I call it, the motherhood of invention, right? And necessity really is the motherhood of invention. And we get
Right.
so many ideas in my inbox now,
Right.
which is such a testament to the strength of the brand and the equity that we have as inventors and innovators. But going back to what you said around the simplicity and the obvious nature of it, that's really the whole mission. Is the why didn't I think of that? Have to haves, not the nice to haves.
Right.
There's a whole oversaturated aisle of Target and Walmart for the nice to haves. We like to really carve out a space for ourselves in the have to have.
Yeah.
And my personal pain points on the front lines of motherhood for the first few years have really shaped and informed the entirety of our innovation pipeline. And even beyond that, we have 150 plus employees who are collectively parents to over 72 children under the age of 10. Like, we don't use focus groups.
Right.
We are the focus group. We
100%.
live and breathe these problems day in and day out.
Yeah.
And so as long as we stay true to this commitment to keep it simple, innovative, thoughtful, the obvious, detailed, thoughtful experience that you have when you use one of our products, you just know that they're made by parents.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's amazing. And I could talk about that with you all day, but I feel like for the listeners, we have to give them what they want to hear and
Let's do it.
go back into the relationship stuff because
Let's do
I'm
it.
so curious. So you have Hunter.
Have Hunter, yep.
And you're going into this motherhood thing like a power couple. You're not going in so when you go into motherhood as a power couple,
I'm so uncomfortable by it. I don't know
I'm
why.
so sorry. I'm so sorry, but it's
okay.
just the facts. It's just the facts. I wish there was a different term for it.
Self-promotion.
Well, as a couple that's both killing it. I don't know. Maybe that's worse.
I love it.
Maybe
Okay,
that's
fine,
worse.
fine,
Okay.
power couple. No, I just think I'm seeing Victoria and David Beckham in my head.
But why not?
Sure, love it. Let's do it.
So, unfortunately, the way that it goes is as a mother, the mental load is on us.
Totally.
Our husbands, I don't know, maybe Eric is, and that's amazing. My husband's not understanding how my son even gets into a music class. He doesn't even know how the sign-up process works.
Yep.
He wouldn't be in the classes if it wasn't for me.
The invisible load.
Exactly, the invisible load. And so that starts to occur in your mind. You're thinking about things, obviously work stuff, but other things now, how your kid is sleeping and do I need a sleep consultant, whatever moms think about.
Yep.
And then how does that affect your relationship? Because how do you not feel resentful? I'm kind of bringing in too, but I'm also thinking about so much more than you.
It actually didn't occur to me for the first few years. I don't know, call it the curse of competency. I just figured it out. The friction wasn't palpable to me. I felt, at least with one kid in the beginning, and maybe even two, I felt that the juggle or the dance that I was doing, I enjoyed. I have a little bit of OCD. And so the thought of delegating to someone else who might not understand exactly how I want it done was so foreign to me that I didn't allow myself to really contemplate the benefit of sharing that invisible load.
Mm-hmm.
Nor did I even quantify or attempt to understand the amount of brain space that was being allocated
Right.
to that work,
Mm-hmm.
so to speak.
Right. But there wasn't resentments. You were just
Not
like
in the
doing your
beginning.
thing.
No, not in the
Mm-hmm.
beginning. I was really shaping my identity as a parent and what
Right.
parenthood looked like in our house. And
Mm-hmm.
I loved being in the driver's seat of that.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because he wasn't an active participant, right? We had a very healthy, professional, and personal um, dynamic
Mm-hmm.
in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
He was doing his work, I was doing mine. My life was informing my work, art imitating life, life imitating art.
Mm-hmm.
And so I felt a very symbiotic experience being a parent and then building a parenting business.
Right.
And so the friction didn't really surface until probably I had two who were school age about, and then a third on the way.
Right.
And then I was like, well, what's going
And
on?
now you have 4.
And now I have 4.
Did you come from 4?
No, I came from 3. I love having a big family, but
Yeah.
4 was never an intentional contemplation.
Like it was a surprise.
It was a surprise, but it was if it happens, it happens sort of like in the
Right.
beginning of
Well,
the
it's
story.
also like it's the same way that, I love my husband. I want to be with him forever. But like if we were to, go through something, it's good for my brand, right? Like if
Right,
you are to
correct.
have another
Okay, so
kid,
I'm so
it's
glad you
good
said
for
that.
your brand.
Right.
Like
It's not quite a
unintentionally.
tax write-off, but let's say that it inspires the next
Research.
wave of innovation
Yeah.
that I never would have had. And I'm having a really hard time closing this chapter of my life personally, honestly. I am excited for what's to come, but I love this stage of parenthood
Mm-hmm.
and of my life, generally speaking, working and building the business, and their needs are so fundamental, right? And I think that had I built the business at a later stage of parenthood, I would not have been able to commit as much energy um, and channel as much of a prioritization shift as I did when their needs were very, really basic.
Mm-hmm.
And I could unpack that so much more as it pertains to sort of the entrepreneurial stages of scale of a business and what it takes as a CEO. But yeah, the friction from an invisible load perspective really started to become palpable as the kids' needs evolved. And I would say the logistics started to swallow me.
Yeah, I mean, it's so difficult. What are the ages of your kids? There's so many things going on. It's not like they're all like, I mean, there's probably times where they were napping at opposite times. They
There
have
still
different
are.
parties, like
There still
different
are. I
friends.
could
Like,
write a book or probably build an app around the templates and the logistics hacks that I have come to rely on
please
and have
do.
created.
Like, we all
Because
need that.
my desktop, sometimes at work, I keep one screen up with the logistics starting around like 3 or 4 p.m. And another screen for what I'm actually working on because something inevitably surfaces where,
Right.
The schools and really like just piling on to the invisible load. The school's calling me, one of them forgot their homework, or one of them is in the nurse, or one wants a play date after school, but I forgot to tell him before that he has this activity. No one's calling Eric's cell phone.
Right.
I'll never forget. We were sitting in a meeting with very senior executives from Target who had flown down to Miami just to listen to this big presentation and vision that we had for the next phase of innovation at Frida. And 3 phone calls on my phone, and I have to turn it over at that point to see who it is. I have 4 children. And it's the school, and I'm literally in the middle of presenting. And I look at him like, do you maybe want to take this?
Right.
And I was just like, no, I'll just take it. and we
Yeah.
paused the meeting and I excused myself and I took the call from the school nurse, and Celine had, bumped her out on the playground or whatever sort of inconsequential, thank God,
Yeah.
uh, issue had arose. But I said, Celine's dad is also available.
Right, right.
In case she was, the nurse said, we tried to reach you several times. It's like, okay.
Ugh.
That's just that part. I think the guilt is it's impossible to avoid.
Yeah.
But the load has started to be borne more equally by the
Mhm.
two of us, especially when the third and fourth were like force multipliers with respect to the need to manage at such a proficient level.
Right, right, of course. So you start this business, you take it over.
Yep.
Your husband is still doing this
Yep.
Burger King thing. At what point is there a conversation where you're like, I would like for you to come over? Or he was like, I would like to come over.
Oh no.
Like, how did this go down?
He has way too much respect for what I was doing to impose or suggest that. He very respectfully waited for an invitation. But I remember exactly where we were sitting. It was December 2018. It was 3 months after Pierce was born, my third
Mhm.
boy. And I was scaling the business. We were probably about, I don't know, 30 employees-ish at the time. And you reach certain step function levels of growth from a talent density perspective where you really need to bring on the next level of experience to scale ahead of your growth curve. And he had referred a few former employees who were no longer working at Burger King to help come and help me build the Frida business on the marketing side. And the brand and marketing side, I was basically a road warrior. I lived on the road selling the products at every meeting that I could take, whether it was, and these were far-flung places, like to the point where when we built our new house in Miami Beach a few years ago, I built a closet behind my bed for my carry-on luggage. Like that's how accessible I needed it to be. But so I couldn't really invest as much time as I wanted to on some of the equally as important brand building initiatives because I was on the road so much. And one of the best pieces of advice he ever gave me was you're only as good as your team.
Yeah.
So we would sort of brainstorm all these ideas around who to hire, what agencies to work with. And for whatever reason, on the marketing and brand building side, no one was working out. I couldn't loosen the grip of control that I wanted over the brand tone of voice, the look and feel, how I wanted us to show up in the world. And I said, why don't you just advise and help train this CMO who I'm going to bring on starting in the new year and teach him how I think. Like we called it channeling Chelsea. Like teach him to channel me and how you've built the brand and all the basics and fundamentals about brand building at a much more mature level, but how to do it really at a very scrappy and lean level because the brand was the most valued part and the moat that we were building around the business at the time. And even the copy on the packaging, like I just wanted to control everything. And this was my first exercise in really like loosening my grip and letting go. And so we did that for, I don't know, maybe 6 months. And it wasn't enough. I just wanted more. And so really it probably to that person at the time felt like micromanaging how the brand showed up in the world. But we cared so deeply about shaping what the future of that would look like ultimately that we decided to experiment with making this a more robust and full-time commitment to Frida. And at
Like
the
a family
time,
business.
yeah, which seemed sort of unfathomable and really risky. Maybe even the biggest professional risk I've ever taken to work together. But two things were true. One, Burger King was a more mature business and brand. It had developed and scaled to sort of manifest exactly what they had set out to do. It had been, I think, 6 or 7 years that he'd taken on a variety of different roles around innovation and marketing and all that. And 2, he had his own tremendous professional accomplishments in that endeavor. I mean, 30 under 30, marketer, the recognition, the satisfaction from building the brand that had become sort of synonymous with some of the most impactful cultural movements that were happening at the time. And were it not for those 2 things, I don't think it would work out.
Yeah.
I don't think it, I mean, he's very comfortable working for me, which is really unique.
Yeah. How do you separate it? Like, how are you getting in bed at night and not being like, wait, did we get back to that person? And instead being like, I just literally anything else, you know? And I just like, yeah, I need to know.
Okay. The podcast answer is we set boundaries and we say after.
But the real answer is there's no chance
there's
that
0.
yeah.
Like before he has one eye open, I'm like,
Right.
why didn't you respond to me on Slack yesterday?
Right.
I mean, even this morning, it's literally 6:30 a.m. and he's
Right.
FaceTiming me to say goodbye as he takes the 4 kids to school in Miami, or he's taking one to the dentist.
Yeah.
I mean, forget the fact that he's like, can you remind me where the dentist is again?
Yeah.
And he's FaceTiming me, and I'm like, did you see the questions that I emailed you?
Right.
I really need you to get back to me.
Yeah.
And so the real answer is you don't.
And that's so funny though, because you're like, you're like, is there a tissue over there? Because, like if he's like, oh, I have to take like the kids to school, like you're the one that he says that to,
Right,
and you're like,
right.
yeah, no, take them to school, but
Right.
like also answer me, but
also-
like also this.
I mean, it's great because no one has more empathy and understanding for the realities of what we're going through
Right.
than he and I for each other and one another.
Mm-hmm.
But on the flip side, it does compromise any sort of intimacy or sort of space,
Yeah.
spare space
Right.
to be us. And I think sometimes what sometimes gets me is the impact that it may have on our kids at this stage. And so we really try, it's one of my resolutions for this year, to be as intentional and present as possible when we're home with them. We have family dinner every single night,
Right.
you know, without compromise. We really don't go out on the week during the week. To sort of set the expectation that is sacred time.
Yeah.
Even if it's 45 minutes. But on the flip side, they get to see us building a business.
I was gonna
together.
say, like, this
it's
is
so-
something you cannot deny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, you literally have to be doing what you guys are doing. It's so amazing, and they're seeing that. And like, as they get older, they'll be like, "Wow, like my parents are so cool. They did this really cool thing, and like they're able to do it together." You know, there's so much. Like, nothing's gonna be perfect, and it's always like there's gonna be days, but like overall it's so amazing.
Yeah, I get emotional when I think, and you'll appreciate this as a boy mom, when I think how grateful I am for the role that he plays in all of this, both personally and professionally, raising 3 boys.
Yeah.
I think it's such a unique front row seat that they have to see their father support the professional ambitions and contribute so meaningfully and symbiotically
Right.
to what we've created, that it's unique for child rearing, especially of men.
Totally. I
Little
mean,
men
but like
who are gonna
now
go out into the world.
Well, I was gonna say
eventually.
now your sons are gonna be like looking for someone like you. And so like your
Oh,
potential
no.
daughter-in-laws are gonna be like, intense and
Yeah, I
amazing.
know. Eric's like, be careful what you wish
Uh-huh.
for.
They're gonna be like, no, you're
Right.
not. You're
Yeah,
not my
right.
mom.
I'm in charge.
Um,
I'm in charge now. I would
that's
love nothing more, please.
no, I mean, they're gonna probably find amazing, dynamic women like you. And how cool is that?
Yeah, they just
Like,
have a blueprint, I think, from Eric, which is so incredible, of what it really looks like in whatever extent possible, to the greatest extent
yeah,
possible, the most egalitarian existence
right.
between a mother and a father who both have these professional and personal ambitions outside of their role as parents, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we really subscribe. I was just telling someone this morning doing press when we launched in France last year. It was such an impactful moment for me as someone who has really admired the French way of parenting for so long,
Right.
where your family life gets integrated into
Mm-hmm.
a holistic sense of who you are. And I really feel like this has allowed for that in
Yeah,
a way that's fairly unique.
totally. And let me just make sure because I know we're definitely okay. We have like a few more minutes.
Okay, great.
But and then how do you like we talked a little bit about, separating it before, like when you're off,
Hmm.
if off is even a thing for
Yeah.
you.
Nope, not really, but
Um
I'm working on it.
but like what about, and of course, whatever you're comfortable with
Yeah.
sharing, but like what about when it comes to like romantic intimacy?
Yeah.
We often, like we want to think, or I'm just really speaking for myself, but like I want to think of my partner as like, you know, like just like the more I don't even know how to articulate it, but like not like in charge, but just,
Yeah, I get it.
and like when you're in the dynamic where you're in charge,
I get it.
how do you submit? Not like,
No,
50 Shades of Grey
yes,
submit,
totally.
but you know
Get
what
it.
I mean.
Yeah. No, I think that there are spheres of our life where he is in the driver's seat.
Right.
Right. And so it's not, but our professional collective identity and individual identities are just one small part of our holistic existence as a family, as partners, as spouses. And so there definitely is space in our relationship for me to feel turned on by that component
Mm-hmm.
of our relationship, but also where I feel we're most successful to that end is when we go away together. Really, when we invest the time to like retrench in the relationship, independent of our roles as parents, as business and brand builders,
Mm-hmm.
and our roles that sort of shape the everyday of our lives. For whatever reason, I'm an expert compartmentalizer. And
Great.
so I can really invest in that dynamic when I'm outside of the traditional confines of my everyday life.
Yeah.
And I plan my personal life as meticulously as I plan my professional life. So we're really intentional about saving time for those things. I mean, it's hard. We're both running the business, so
Right.
we can't leave that frequently.
Right.
But we take whatever chance we can get.
That's great.
I
No.
sometimes have to be physically out of my home.
Right.
So really,
Well, actually, it just came to me how to articulate it, which is like a lot of people talk about like leaning into your feminine and like letting him
Right.
lean into his masculine
Right.
or whatever. You know
Right.
what I'm saying?
Uh-huh.
And that's hard when you're running the show
Yeah.
of a business, because like, and it's like, it's controversial, the whole like feminine masculine
Yeah, I was gonna
thing.
say, I don't know that I would know how to channel it or define it that way.
Well, so
I
that's
need
just
to
like,
meditate on that for a
yeah.
little bit.
That's just like how people will say it, right? About
Right.
like leaning into your feminine. And what that means is like, giving the man an opportunity to like be a man, like,
Right.
like being like, oh, will you open this jar? Like,
Right.
and it sounds so ridiculous.
It does. I like to think that we are at the forefront of redefining what masculinity and femininity traditionally are together.
Yeah.
And setting an example that you can abandon having to lean in, in the Charles Sandburg type of way, right, to those identities, and really maybe instead redefine it as compartmentalize, right? And so today, you can be this version of yourself.
Right.
And then this afternoon or next weekend, right? Or Thursday morning, right? Whatever it is. I think it's really more about finding the time than leaning into maybe a persona that I probably don't have.
Right.
For better or for worse. I'm sure there are a lot of for worse components of it.
Yeah. No, I like the idea of like choosing when to be what.
Right.
I think that's the goal, right? And I similar to you, and I don't know you that well, but I can like sense that you have more of, I don't even know if I would call it a masculine energy, because obviously you're not masculine anyway, but you know what I'm saying?
Intensity.
Like the intensity.
By the way, my mom
right?
was the same way.
Yeah.
Super intense, passionate women who have a very strong perspective about a lot of things.
Exactly. And like with my husband specifically, I have a ton of that. And I would say he is more like, he doesn't have a feminine energy, but he's more sensitive than I am, for example. Right.
Yeah.
So like sometimes I'm almost like faking like needing him for something. And honestly,
no, I bet you that's
like
smart.
it's nice for him. Cause like I'm like, oh, like I need you to like cuddle me. I'm like cold, whatever it is. Right.
Yeah, no.
And
it's
like
really hard for me. I'm uncomfortable by it. I need to do a lot of self-help work to be better at that. Needing people and asking for help is something that is extremely foreign to me.
That's your Aries, by the way. There it is.
Right. And I don't feel comfortable asking for help. I love getting it and rely on it tremendously in all aspects of my life. But being explicit about that reality is really hard for me.
Yeah. Yeah. I get that. Oh, I could talk to you forever.
Chapter 2.
Seriously.
To be continued.
But can you leave us with a quote or piece of advice, Chelsea? Something that has like helped you throughout the years, or maybe something you heard from a mentor?
Work life, personal life, all life, whole
Anything.
life. Yeah, I think as a working mom, you'll appreciate this philosophy with which I've sort of shaped my life and have gotten comfortable with the reality that I've abandoned this need or desire to quote unquote have it all, right? I think the reality is that as a mother of 4 and a CEO, I am constantly making a series of trade-offs. And in order to be the best at what you do, 110% commitment, no compromise, you have to, the earlier on you get comfortable with those trade-offs and sacrifices, the better off you are. I really try to think of my life in chapters and which story am I prioritizing right now. And of course, right, you have a sick kid, everything else drops, right? You're picking them up, you're taking care of them. But have I missed my fair share of Mother's Day shows? Definitely, right? For whatever reason, they always seem to be during the CBS line review while I was building this business. But you know, maybe 10 years into Frida, I'm turning the page on a new chapter where 150 employees later, that's now not a sacrifice that I need to make. But when I had 1 employee, that was something that I chose to make.
Yeah.
And so I think the sooner that especially working women, because of that invisible load, can get comfortable with that. But really, I think it applies to all working parents, right? Because dads are playing such a greater role within the family in our generation of parenthood than ever before. So I really think it's sort of a universal truth with respect to all parents. The sooner you can get comfortable with the trade-offs and respect each other's contributions, the easier it is to navigate some of the frictions of building a professional and personal coexistence over time. And I think in the long run, it all evens out.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. Where can everyone find you and follow you on social?
Oh my God.
And order Frida products?
My online identity is something that is evolving thanks to my fabulous team. But yeah, I'm on most of the social media channels. I try to keep my personal life sort of separate and shielded, but you can usually find me leading the Frida how-tos or the whys behind some of our products and some of our initiatives, particularly some of the newer ones like our Frida Uncensored platform online. I'm also occasionally featured at Frida Baby and at Frida Mom on Insta, a little behind the scenes inspiration behind some of the innovation.
Cool. Thank
Great.
you.
Thanks for having me.